So I'm here to talk to you about one of my first books engaging with Framed in September, the readathon about various kinds of arts. I want to talk to you about a couple of books by Polly Devlin. Now, she's someone I was not aware of until more recently. I'll just show you the books I'm going to talk about. Specifically, Writing Home by Polly Devlin, and her book, New York, Places to Write Home About. This came first, and this is basically her autobiography, but it's pieced together from articles she's written for magazines. So Polly actually was very famous for working in writing for Vogue, and there's a whole story about how she came to do that. She basically hailed from Northern Ireland. She first came to my attention as a post, a note at the bottom of the page in the letters of Seamus Heaney. There's a wee note. After their wedding, Seamus Heaney and Mary Heaney spent their honeymoon in London, where Mary's younger sister, Polly Devlin, was features editor on the fashion magazine Vogue. And I went, oh, that's incredibly glamorous. How did she get to do that? And then that's in what, So that's in 1965, 1969. There's a comment about Polly has been up to her welcome nepotism once again, this time in Virginia. I'm going over to give a talk on something or other to a literary club in Richmond, for which they intend to offer $600, enough to pay my fare and give me a margin. So she seemed this mysterious, glamorous person on the verge of Seamus Heaney's life. And then this week, I came across a YouTube video where she's talking in her home and her background about things that she loved, things that made her smile and laugh, and she's in her house and she's talking about decorating and her interest in all of that. So she came across as somebody I thought, oh, she sounds really interesting. I like her sense of humour. I like the way she looks on life, and started to just look at her in the jolly old Wikipedia. Found she'd written lots and lots of books, and bought these two because one is showing her doing her work, so to speak, giving us little views into people's lives and flats and so on in New York, and Writing Home. She is not disappointed. She is extremely entertaining, good company, writes thoughtfully, provokingly, and in the sense of provoking you to think more. And her articles in Writing Home cover a vast array of subjects, and I do recommend it, wholeheartedly recommend it. In fact, before I'd even finished reading it, I was thinking of another friend for whom I must get this as a copy. And I have to say, in terms of this book, it's got an index at the back. How many other biographies? You know, a nice one, not too long. She's lived an extraordinary life. She came from the back of beyond in a little rural place in Ireland and moved to Vogue in London. She tells a very good story. I've got examples in here. And she got snapped up by the New York editor, Diana Vreeland. That interested me because I've seen the documentary in her life called The I Must Travel, about how she looked at things. So that I thought was interesting. She was taken along as a sort of protege of this Diana Vreeland. And I love the fact she mentioned in this book that she would furnish a house by trial and error, and that's utterly heartwarming. She's so honest. She talks about why would you collect, that it's for credibility. That's an interesting point. She cares deeply for vanishing natural countryside. If you like dogs, she's got several dog stories in this book which are very, you will understand if you're a dog lover yourself. She talks with her daughter about, her daughter's writing an essay on why are there no great women artists, which provokes an interesting discussion, and the fact that it's not really a question, and what the prejudice that's behind the whole question, and the poor thinking through in that. And that's just that chapter alone is worth reading, and it's written like a discussion between her and her daughter. And she does very good descriptions, like a film, where she's talking at one point about the Christmas tree. And let me see if I can find that. The last Christmas tree, right? Just put my reading glasses on. And when I think about us decorating it, I go into another kind of reverse and see my children long since disappeared into their own future, as in a film montage, frame by frame, their images age upon age, flashing and cascading past in the costumes they chose to wear for the ceremonies of the tree. Here are 3 small blondes entangled in the fairy lights. Here a luminous tot in a tutu, yes, even in the winter. Another solemn in a lilac negligee and Violet Elizabeth Bott style ringlets. Here one caught up in the branches in her small and earnest reality, wearing a nurse's white uniform with the red cross on the skewed cap. And here, whizzing past, is your actual adolescent. An awesome thing like something from Gorman Gast, with a ring in her nose, staring out at you from under black hair with dislike, but still helping with the tree. That ceremony was a constant in the kaleidoscope of our lives. So I hope that lets you see the kind of colourful way she describes things. I love the film aspect that she describes it as being all these different images of her children at different stages in life, that she remembers them all, and it's like they're all present in the same scene and she can recall them all. What else have I noted at the back of the book? She expands on the idea of a room of one's own. The fact that if you're a mother, it's not just that you can have the room, but you also need to, you would still be listening out for the children on the other side of the door. And in actual fact, for a lot of women, really coming into their creativity is in their older years. Or if you're younger, you've got someone to help with the house of the children. She's one overused word, which is voluptuous, but that's because she's often describing things with all the senses. And I just think that's great. So you get to read about how she grew up in this incredibly rural place. You get to read where she thinks about the past of Ireland and the present and the troubles to a certain extent, and then how she goes to London, to this completely other world of Vogue, and then is pulled into the even more unusual world of New York and a glamorous magazine, Vogue. And they're all asking her, what's the newest, trendiest thing? And she's thinking, I don't quite know. So, yeah, she's thinking about so many different things. I'll have to put a list of them actually in the notes because there's just too many. But she takes you to a place and a space and a time and thinks things through. She also thinks through about, you know, being a feminist, what is that? And why are some people so reluctant now to say they are a feminist? And she's just very practical, matter of fact, and tackles the big subjects. And she writes beautifully. She will use good quotes, interesting quotes. She does like poetry. And she writes two articles which are basically a meditation and a saying goodbye to two very, very close people she had that she loved in her life. And one of them is a very good woman who's a friend, and the other is Seamus Heaney himself. That comes near the end of the book. She writes well. And also there's a whole chapter about the particular kind of language and dialect and little sayings in Northern Ireland. So if you come from Northern Ireland like I do, then there's a little extra treat for you in that. The New York book, Places to Write Home About, is utterly, I was trying to think, what's the way to put it? It's about people who are incredibly creative, and they tend to be completely off the wall in a way in terms of spending. There are some people for whom collecting art has been a lifetime's passion, and their apartment is gigantic and looks like it could be mistaken for the MoMA or somewhere. It's just got huge sculptural pieces just scattered around. And there's one house that's featured, one apartment, which I think would be dear to the heart of anyone who likes to read books, because it's totally constructed around the idea of a central library. And within this library, a little wing of it is the dining table, and you can go upstairs, which are more books obviously along, and that's where the bedroom is as well. So let me get that for you. A substantial world, Donald and Patricia Ora's man. And this is what it looks like. For some of us, to be honest, it's going to look like the pictures their friends send them all the time saying this reminded me of you, or just your ideal world of having that huge amount of space and yet that lived in look with books. And the whole place just invites you to sit down, pick up, open a book and start reading. So part of this apartment is also a huge collection of paintings and pictures of people reading. And so even in the library, that's what the art is about. And she lists examples. Let's do this alphabetically and geographically. Examples by Balthus, Aubrey Beardsley, Max Beerbohm, Vanessa Bell, Chagall, Cocteau, Roger Fry, Alberto Giacometti, Eric Gill, Duncan Grant, Gwen John, Fernand Léger, Magritte, Matisse, Henry Moore, Picasso and Diego Rivera. And so it goes on, and it starts to list the American artists. So, you know, we are not talking about the kind of world in which many of us live. But I think that's the wonderful thing about a big glossy book. It just keeps your mind open, and there are little ideas that you can maybe use in a moderate way. But it is opening your world, your idea, your mind in another world. A little comment she's made at the start, where she has said, I hold that making your own environment beautiful is as valid a work of art as any piece of writing or painting or sculpture. We should approach decoration in the way that we approach the other arts. So this is the art form that I'm thinking about from her for Framed in September. And I love, she's written a part referring to what she grew up with. And I just understand what she means. Because I grew up in 1950s Northern Ireland, where the decorating ethic in all its fine completeness was kitchens is buff and landings is brown, where the concept of collecting meant the saving of small pieces of string and brown paper, and where beauty was grimly regarded as an occasion of sin, I craved ornament. If you are at all interested in visual display, you would probably love this book. And in terms certainly of a riveting biography, I warmly recommend her book Writing Home. And those are my recommendations and feedback and thoughts initially for Framed in September. And I shall be following and reading and looking out for more by Polly Devlin. She's written a whole lot more books, but those are the ones that I'm starting off with. So I hope that's just been exciting for you. If you're thinking towards visual display, houses, the very ordinary things in a way that we all do, or in my case have yet to do, because I've recently moved into a house and it's all yet got to be done. So I'm looking for ideas. But we do that, as she says, it's as good a work of art, as valid a work of art as writing and pursuing other arts, and it's something that we all do. So I hope this inspires you. Please let me know what you're doing for Framed in September. Bye for now.